Welcome to the Old Brother Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith.
Good to see you tonight, Dan.
We're back, man. We're going to talk about Mobland Season 1, which is started streaming on Paramount Plus March 30th, 2025. Season 1 brings us 10 episodes. This is a Guy Ritchie vehicle. And, obviously, as so many people do, I just immediately go to Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Of course.
Snatch, obviously, but Lock, Stock was like, it must have been my first introduction to him. Like,
that was his breakout.
That was his, yeah. And I forget what year that was offhand. Do you remember
He
offhand?
did.
Do you have it handy?
I don't.
Oh,
He
you don't
did-
have it on the desk? That's
I
crazy.
don't.
Mike usually has it on the desk.
He did the Sherlock Holmes films with Robert Downey Jr. A lot of people don't remember that.
Right. Yeah. It's funny. A couple things up front here, Mike. So you don't listen to podcasts like I do.
No, well,
Probably
I
at
listen
all.
to
I
the
know.
Rexer show. Other than that,
That's
no.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not a podcast. It's not really a podcast. It's a YouTube channel, but he doesn't run
Yeah.
a podcast like we do. But anyways, so one thing that I love about our show, and hopefully listeners will love it too, is there's no ads with the Yo Brother
Right.
podcast. No ads, ad free.
Yeah.
Now, that may or may have something to do with the fact that, we don't have a big
Nobody's
enough
watching us.
followership to get sponsored. That aside, I just like to point out that benefit that you can listen to the Yo Brother podcast ad free. You can also support the show. There's a link in the show notes if you are so inclined.
As you like to point out to me, we get way more listeners than viewers.
Well, it's interesting you would bring that up because it is true overall. However, we just hit another milestone here as we just passed our 50th-year anniversary on the podcast, which is we've reached 300,000 views on YouTube. Not too shabby. Now, again, 287,500 of those are you and I. But again, still a pretty solid achievement. So, but yeah, regardless of how you, digest your
Consume
podcast.
it. Yeah.
We're everywhere on whatever podcast player that you prefer. But we also do have the YouTube channel. And so we appreciate the folks that not only like and subscribe, but also interact with us on the channel, which we've been fortunate. We've got to a point at least where I think we're getting more engagement, and we just enjoy that genuinely. And we get educated a lot by the folks that comment. I mean, we just had a few folks chiming in on the first look we did on the Fantastic Four First Steps.
Right.
And
I totally blew that right from the jump.
We knew nothing about this character Galactus.
Right.
And we got schooled in a good way, and people were, kind of dropping some knowledge on us, which I appreciate.
I was convinced, Tony Stark's dad, Howard Stark, was the opening character, even though behind him it was clearly like the Gilbert Show or something like that.
But again, it was like the Ted Gilbert Show. But for those that that may not know, our first look episodes, it's like our first impressions, and we're watching these trailers for the first time, together. And so there's gonna be, and as deep and well read as you are on the Marvel universe, it just goes to show you. But as you pointed out on that first look, and we often do, is we're not comic guys. So
now, if I was a comic guy, I instantly would have known who Galactus was, because as soon as we got off, I looked, and it was right there.
Yeah, and again, we got even more information and some details from folks. So we appreciate those that commented and continue to do that. It's really it's fun, it's interesting, it's also educational. Occasionally we get some knucklehead comments, but that's pretty rare. So
this, however, is not a Marvel episode.
This is not. No. So again, we're talking about Mobland, and it's funny too. So just to back up and provide a little context is you'd been talking to me about Mobland for
because
weeks,
'cause I've been
probably
watching it
probably
every week, yeah.
months. Now, did you I don't think you jump when did you jump in to start watching it?
First episode.
Like, when it first aired?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been on it for a few months.
Yeah, so for me, it's unfolded week by week where you did more of a binge,
Yes.
and I assume you liked it based on how quickly you binged the second half.
Well, yeah, so what happened was, again, you'd been talking about it, and I just hadn't found time in my schedule yet to start watching it, and I had, come off the, very uplifting series Ozark, and I binged all 4 series of that, and I was looking for something with a lighter
Lighter.
mood, and then I went to Mobland, which didn't help,
Right, right.
but yeah,
This
so
is very dark.
I watched the first episode. I don't think I said anything to you. I just said, "Ah, let me just start this," because you had this Paramount Plus deal. So we checked it out, and I watched the first episode, and we were talking on the phone. And I was pretty critical of it.
Yeah,
And I didn't really love it, and I think I was saying to you, I feel like this has been done before, and which it has, right?
correct.
This idea, this story idea, isn't new,
Right.
mobsters and so forth. But I would say by the time I got to the 3rd episode, I was in. I was rolling with it,
Yeah. And
and
see,
really.
when you hit me after the first episode, I was confused because I was like 6 or 7 deep, and
Mhm.
I'm like, "How does he not like this?"
Yeah. Well.
Because we're both fans of mob films. The Godfather is one of
Mhm.
those is in both of our top 5. I think you have the original and I have part
I
2.
have 2.
Okay, so I have the
You have the
original,
original, yeah.
and, like, I have some stuff behind me. I've tried to turn people on to the Godfather epic,
You've got Scarface, I can see in your poster.
Scarface, the
Yeah,
poster up there, Casino,
right.
um, all those films we're fans of.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
I
and
don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
in series 2, yeah, but I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna unpack that a little bit with you here, and, it's funny because this made me go down this British rabbit hole. I was like, I found myself, I was, listening to Brit rock and Brit pop, and, I pulled out White City by Pete Townshend, which we love. That's the great, I think it's the greatest Pete Townsend record that
Concept
he
album,
that
yeah,
he's ever put out. So I was doing kind of a deep dive into that world. But one thing I also want to point out that we'll get into kind of some of the blow by blow here is you mentioned to me, I forget how you brought it up, but you were talking about the theme song of this series. And I
correct.
will say, it's amazing how a detail like that can really influence and impact a series in both a positive or negative way. You think of like The Sopranos. Yeah, woke up this morning, got myself,
Right,
like everybody knows that track within the first beat.
right.
And this is kind of similar. The Fontaines DC, which is I believe they're originally out of Belfast, but based in, I think, London, and have been now. And I believe this is their 4th album, which is called Romance, and the one of the tracks off of it called Stardust or Starbuster, sorry, is the theme song from Mobland. And what I really wanted to specifically point out about this that I know you don't know is there is
Mm.
an extended version of their album, of this album called Romance, which is, you can see it right here on
Yeah,
the
you
cover.
sent me a clip that had that picture.
There's another version, a live version of the song, Starbuster, and it's kind of like a solo piano version
Hmm.
done live. But Mike, the title of it is Starburster. I keep saying Buster, sorry, Starburster in Heaven, in parentheses, Lady in the Radiator song. Does that ring a
Oh,
bell?
wow, yeah, from,
We did
David
a
Lynch,
we did an episode
Eraserhead.
on Eraserhead, and it's
Yeah,
a reference to that film. But Starburster is a great tune. It fits perfectly with this show too.
and I don't know about you, but when that starts, I'm locked into the episode. It's just got me in the mood.
Yeah,
It's so fitting.
it is.
It just gets you ready for the show.
I've worn it out. I've worn it out. Now, this show I read was, originally, because this goes
Yes.
back a little bit, it was originally gonna be the Donovans,
Right,
just
which
kind of
is
loosely based on Ray Donovan.
right, played by Liv Schreiber.
Yeah, Lee well,
Um,
or Liev Schreiber, depending on
yeah, I
again,
always call him,
Mike coming with the pronunciations, that's
and
okay.
I love his work, as an
Yes.
actor. If you haven't seen Manchurian
You know what I
Candidate.
you know what I love about Liev Schreiber, which he's a great, voice talent,
Yeah,
and a lot of sports fans out there, if you watch this series they do, they still doing it, with this lead up to the NHL Winter Classic for hockey.
I know
He
he did that,
They
yeah,
do this series leading up to the Winter Classic, and he's the voice of that series, and you would never know when you see
right.
him in the voice, it just doesn't seem to fit, but
He
so talk
also played Orson Welles in RKO
That's right, that's right.
280 or whatever it's
But did you
called.
wanna say more about this original concept?
Just that you can actually find the description on Paramount Plus describing, and it was really gonna be based on Ray Donovan's family,
Yeah.
and our dad watched that show, loved it, and I never watched it, and I'm shocked because I like him as an actor. I really didn't know what the show was about, but
Mhm.
it's about a fixer, which is
Yeah,
really Tom Hardy in
right.
this series.
It is. Well, and it was and then it started to morph, and I think the next working title was The Associate,
Mhm.
focusing on Tom Hardy's character in this, Harry D'Souza, which, as you said, he's like a fixer basically for
Like a
this mob family that is
right.
headed by Helen Mirren and Pierce Brosnan, the Carrigans, right? The
The
Carrigans? The
Harrigans with an
Harrigans.
H.
I keep thinking of Conrad, which is
Yeah,
Pierce's character. But
yeah.
so real quick, so we said it's a Guy Ritchie vehicle. He's also an executive producer on this. He directed, I think, one or
2,
two episodes,
2
two episodes.
episodes.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then there's a couple of other. There's about three other folks that have directed the sequence of 10 episodes.
Anthony Byrne did 4 of
Anthony.
the 9,
Oh, did he? Okay.
so that was a big chunk.
Now the writing is primarily done by Ronan Bennett,
Mhm.
and anything you want to say about Ronan Bennett in particular?
I really honestly, I don't know his work.
Yeah, I didn't either. And then I looked him up, and he did a series that was really it seemed pretty popular on British TV on Channel 4 there, called Top Boy.
Hmm.
And again, it's set in London, and it's not a mob-based series so far from what I can tell. It's more about, uh, gang members and drugs and things. So it's similar,
Mhm.
there's similar themes and things to it, but,
Right.
um,
You could
it's
tell
real
he understood this genre
well, it's
very well.
interesting. That series, Top Boy, came out originally in 2011, I believe, and it was like 4 episodes. Then they did a second, what they called series of 4 episodes. Then it was gone for several years, and it came back in, like, 2019, and
Hmm.
then in 2023, I think most recently, it had another series, so it kinda got a new life, and it's
Is
on
that a
Netflix. You can see it on
okay?
Netflix.
'Cause there's BritBox, which there
Correct.
I always see series that I'm like, "I really wanna see that."
Yeah, it's on
But I don't
BritBox.
think I have that on my
No, you have to subscribe
cable.
to it. You have to subscribe to it. So Ronan Bennett is, the writer here. He was also the creator of that the series I mentioned, Top Boy. And Richie, the character Richie in this, who is the head of the other, uh,
Stevenson family.
the Stevenson family, correct, played by Jeff Bell.
Mhm.
He stars in Top Boy as well. So it's a familiar face that I saw
Okay.
in that series. Tom Hardy, we mentioned, of course. Patty Considine, who, plays,
Kevin?
Kevin, he's almost like brothers with Tom Hardy's character, right?
Right.
And
I said that to you, and you had only watched an episode, and you were like, "Well, sort of, not really," but I think you saw it develop.
well, they weren't blood brothers, but more or less.
Right.
And folks might know him, as I pointed out to you, he played the king in House of the Dragon.
Right, the
that
king that
series.
basically decays to
Correct.
nothing.
And he was also, I believe he and Tom Hardy were both in Peaky Blinders, is I think
Probably.
another connection between the 2 of them. Pierce Brosnan, we mentioned. Helen Mirren plays a character named Maeve. Jeff Bell, I mentioned. Joanne, I think is it Fraggett or Froggatt? I'm sorry if I'm saying Joanne's name wrong. She's great. She plays Tom Hardy's wife in the film. She's fantastic.
Mhm.
Lara Pulver, Anson Boone. These are just the main characters I'm giving. These are like family members. Mandeep
Anson
Dillon.
Boone is Eddie, right?
Anson Boone is Eddie. Yeah, he's great. God, what a hateable character he
What a
is.
hateable guy.
Teddy Allen plays a character named Gina. And then lastly, I want to mention Janet McTeer, who plays Kat McAllister, who comes in later in the season, but
Right.
I had just became so familiar with as she starred in Ozark
Correct.
as the lawyer to the cartel in Ozark. So
Correct. Meeting a
give us the we don't really need to, but give us the plot of Mobland season
Yeah,
1.
it basically Tom Hardy's kind of the central character, even though it's about these 2 feuding families, the
Right.
Harrigans and the Stevensons. And Tom Hardy is the fixer for Conrad Harrigan, and he's totally dedicated. And when I say fixer, I mean the guy that, makes problems disappear, not like the guy that worked for Trump who yelled at reporters. I'm talking about
Most of those problems are people that he's
their
making go away.
people and the fixer makes them disappear.
Right,
And
right.
that's kind of Tom Hardy's job is a problem comes up, you call him and he fixes it.
Yeah, it's about as you find out though, if you stick in and watch the series, which I would encourage folks to check out if you have Paramount Plus, it's worth it. It's worth getting the trial if you don't have
Correct.
it
That's what I was
and
gonna say.
checking it out. Um, there really isn't a rating on IMDb for it's like, 8.5 out of 10 just based on reviews, but Rotten Tomatoes has it at like 75% for both the critics and the audience. Seemed a little low to me,
That's
like it'd
low.
be more about 80, maybe
Just the
even
production value is better
85%.
than that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really well directed as you might imagine, with a couple of them being by Guy Ritchie, and then the continuity, the consistency of the other director you mentioned, Anthony Byrne.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, do you think how much do you think that the geography plays a role in our reception of the series? So in other words, if this was set somewhere else other than in London, would that change
I
anything?
I think it would. I think, things
What
would be a
about
little
that do you think
different.
makes it more
Well, the
intriguing?
first thing that sticks out to me is the language they use, which is pretty gruff and very English, like slang and bad, like,
C
thing
word.
correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Used like, like it's an ordinary adjective.
Mhm.
But the locations and they shoot in real places, like, there's a whole sequence in Antwerp, and they're
Belgium, yeah.
really in Antwerp.
Mhm.
And, like, you've just recently been to London, so you probably noticed a couple of shots.
Mhm.
And of course, they're basically, UK families, so there is that slant. I mean, you can compare it directly to The Godfather.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't kind of put my fingers on it right now, but I think about like think of some of these series that have a similar um premise to it, themes, etc. Sons of Anarchy, right?
Yeah.
That was based in California, I think. Boardwalk Empire, because that's a whole different time era, time that you're
Right,
talking about.
right.
The Sopranos, which we talked about on our last episode, best and worst finales we were talking about, and Peaky Blinders, which I mentioned earlier as well. But I just wondered, would this series be as good if it was set elsewhere? How much does that play a role in
Well,
this?
given Tom Hardy's proven he can cross over,
Yeah.
and so can Pierce and so can Helen, I think they could cross over and do an American version of this without
Yeah.
yeah, there's the 3,
Yeah.
those are the big names.
Yeah, I don't think that, I don't think it's not like the locations are a separate character, like, it doesn't have that flavor or
No, but
that
the
doesn't have that effect
realism.
or impact, but sure,
Like,
sure.
if they were, around here and they were like, "Yeah, we're headed to Stoneham," like, people would that wouldn't make any that
Well,
location
but
wouldn't mean
for
anything.
us, it would, though.
Yeah, but I think
Like the
this
Irish mob in Boston, like, I would totally be down to watch a series there. They've never done that, that
that's
I
a
can
good
think
point.
of, that I
That's a
can think
good
of.
point.
New York, right? Obviously, that's kind of
Right.
where it always seems to be
New
set, but
Jersey is,
yeah, and maybe that is part of it, is that most of them tend to be in New York, New Jersey, Chicago, these kinds of
right,
places.
right.
So it's
And of
kind of
course, history teaches us those are the big places where the actual mob is.
yeah, yeah,
Not
right.
that there's a real mob out there if you're watching.
There is okay. I just was curious to kind of get your thoughts on that. Now, you mentioned you gave this sort of synopsis of the show, but when you think about it and break down some of the themes in here, like obviously, like any show about this topic, is you're talking power and control and manipulation and
Loyalty.
loyalty and betrayal and revenge and all of these things. The one thing I did not expect, I wished you'd warned me about, but the one thing I did not expect, and this is one thing I really give them credit for, because I feel it was a bit of a courageous um, decision that they made, which is this, and without getting into too many details, I won't spoil anything, but there's this whole storyline that involves this kind of abuse angle, this
Yeah,
abuse storyline, and I didn't see that coming.
right.
It was kind of
And it
being
plays
teased.
out throughout in several different worlds.
Well, correct. Now, there's one in particular I'm talking about, which becomes a very central part of the story,
The
threaded
concluding
throughout.
one?
Yes, but it's teased throughout the whole season
Okay, okay.
in flashbacks and things. That was very powerful, particularly set within this world.
Correct.
To go down that road in this world. Now, having said that, as I say it out loud, The Sopranos did the same thing, right? One of
That's
those
right.
characters, fantastic actor, did a great performance. His character ended up he was gay,
Right.
and that is not no, goes without saying that wasn't
He
it,
had to
he had to
disappear.
yeah, it basically go on his own witness relocation.
And we're not talking about that in this case. We're talking about
Correct.
sexual abuse.
That's right.
That wasn't abuse in The Sopranos. That was just a
Right.
guy, living an alternative
Trying to
lifestyle.
well, not alternative lifestyle, living his lifestyle, living who he was,
Right, right,
right? So
exactly.
so I think, that was something again I didn't expect, but I thought it was pretty brave of them to go down that road. And it was well done. It's well done. So it doesn't feel, for anybody that might be like it doesn't feel preachy or something like that. Or
Right.
I thought it was really well done. There are some you talked about the directors. There's some shots in here that are so nice. Like they do some really good work. I'm always fascinated when directors and DPs kind of are working with mirrors or glass and things like that. And
Yeah.
there's one shot where this character, Kat McAllister, if you can think back to it's one of the last episodes,
Yeah, because she
she
comes in late.
she's in this room. The whole thing is mirrors, like
Yeah.
all the way around behind her. And I just love the fact that
And
the way they're able to shoot that is cool.
the difficulty in shooting mirrors and black and white is very similar because of the shadowing,
Yeah.
the placement of the camera. Like, people have no idea what goes into a shot like that until you see behind the scenes
Mhm.
and get a feel for it. But yeah, it was brilliant.
The other one was if there was a scene in a prison where these 2 characters are talking to each other, and in the one shot, you're seeing the one character in the foreground kind of clear, right? Like, and
Mhm.
then the other one is the reflection of the other character, but they're in the same shot, and it was really,
Yeah.
not like very prominent though, right? Not like
Right.
a like you would normally see a reflection in a shot like that. It's really, really, really well done. But yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was very well done. It got better as the series went on. Tom Hardy was just awesome
Now,
in it.
I gotta bring this up because Netflix has a new Tom Hardy movie
Mhm.
using the song
Starburster.
Starburster
Yeah.
to promote it. Do not be
Really?
confused.
That is that
Yeah,
Havoc? Not the film
it
Havoc that I watched 2
it's
minutes of.
Havoc.
That's
It's Havoc.
terrible.
If you go to the
Sorry.
trailer,
Terrible.
that's what's playing,
That's
and
cheap. That's
it's
cheap.
cheap. I think they're trying to
Of course
confuse
they
the
are.
audience.
Of
So
course they are.
this is Tom Hardy's best work since Mad Max, in my opinion. He's done
Mm.
some bad movies, the Venom movies.
Now, had you seen I don't think it was a big part that he had, but did you see the film Rock'n'Rolla from 2008 that guy
No.
okay, because he and Guy Ritchie technically had worked together
Yes.
before on that film. I hadn't seen it, but
And there's a lot of Easter eggs in this. Like the car Tom Hardy drives is the same car he drove in a film called Layer Cake. Have you seen that one?
no, but that is
That
a sounds like a seriously deep cut.
that introduced Daniel Craig to us, who, goes on to become James Bond.
Well, and now in the headlines just yesterday, Pierce Brosnan in an interview was quoted as saying, "I think Tom Hardy would make a fantastic James Bond."
Oh, interesting.
Now, Pierce Brosnan was just on, I think, the Today Show or good, yeah, I think it was today, and the anchor there said, asked him, would he step into
Yeah.
it again? And he said,
Oh, would he do it? Pierce?
"Yeah," and he said, "They know where to find me." I was like, "Whoa!" And you know what? I think he could pull it off.
I think he could too, and he did a movie post his Bond, which was like a James Bond film,
Mhm.
and it was great. I
Yeah.
forget I don't have the name of it
Well,
off the
he
top
looks
of my head.
fantastic. He's kept himself in pretty good shape, and
And how old was Sean Connery at the end?
well,
He
that's a
he
great
was
point.
getting up
That's a
there.
great point. Absolutely.
You
So
can do an older Bond. I'd
I
love
would
that.
I would lose it if they
I
brought him.
mean,
That
Daniel
would be amazing.
Craig did the opposite where they went backwards and no gadgets and strip him down to when he's not even a double O.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know. I'm not sure that Amazon is going to go after someone like that. I kind of feel like they're just going to go in. They're going to pull like a James Gunn and just blow it up and go down a totally different
Yeah,
route.
I'm nervous about that to be until I hear an announcement, an official director, and like Martin Campbell always says, "Hey, if they want to restart Bond, I'll do it." And he's the
Yeah.
one who directed GoldenEye and Casino Royale,
Now
the
let
2
me let
best Bond films.
let me ask you about this. What do you think about the fact that the production on Mobland began in November last year, 2024, and it wrapped like 6 days before it aired?
Yeah. Yeah,
They
he said they got the scripts. Pierce
they
said they
were
got the scripts very late.
they wrote 6 of the episodes during the production.
Wow.
So, it was like, building the plane as you're flying it, as they say, right? It was
Right.
kind of that situation, which is pretty incredible when you look at the totality of the season and see how well produced it was and directed
Correct.
it was, and it's
And
pretty
I don't know what the
interesting.
cost was, if you came across that,
No, I didn't
but
see
it's
that.
not greenlit yet for season 2. They all wanna do it,
Mm. Well,
but
what is other than Tulsa King, what does Paramount Plus really have? I mean, okay, they've got all the every Tyler Sheridan vehicle that you
in
can
every
think
Tom
of.
Cruise film.
Right. So, but they need a series like this. They need,
Correct.
I would argue. I'm just seeing if there's any sort of production note as to budget, but I don't see that. It's hard to find
Because I
with
just
these
told
series.
you season 2 of Andor was 650,000,000.
That's
Disney
right.
will never, ever
No.
spend that kind of money again until the year 4000.
Well, they might actually, Mike, because I just did you see the latest headline? It says Disney laying off hundreds in TV and film entertainment corporate finance. So they're now there's no statement or specific details as to how many people are about to lose their job, but a lot of people are about to lose their job while they continue to make hand over fist at the parks and
The
everything
parks
else.
especially.
They just reached some other milestone on subscribers to Disney Plus, and I just read, I don't know if you saw, I think it was just announced today that and we've kind of known about this to a certain degree, but the biggest expansion of the Magic Kingdom since it opened, which is in Frontierland, you may be pleased to hear, but they're putting in Piston Park or something
Yeah,
that's based
Cars
on
Land,
cars.
basically,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly. And I'm like, okay. I don't think that's still gonna get me back in the park, but, I did see
But
his great-granddaughter or
but they
something is
do have new stuff, like a new night parade, and I love those.
boring,
Um,
boring, boring.
they just opened a Villains film. Remember the cars next to the Rock and Roller Coaster, which is getting reskinned as a Muppet? There's an attraction right next to that that used to be Cars. That's now a Villains film, and there's, like, 3 actors in it.
I wouldn't even call it an attraction. It's a very small little cove right beside Rock
Right.
and Roller
And they
Coaster.
also just redid, and this is in Hollywood Studios, The Little Mermaid.
Mhm.
Remember that show that used to
Yeah,
rain on
yeah.
you?
It
They
it looks like they did a real nice job at that actually.
but they're
Redo.
clearly they've canceled more Marvel films.
Mhm.
Um, The Avengers has been pushed back 6 months, and it was it's already over a year away, and they're already pushing it back, and, they're just mishandling all their IPs.
Well, if you haven't, listened to it or watched it already, go back and listen to our episode called, Disney, Creative Bankruptcy there. That was we've done several
I need
rants
to
on
listen
Disney,
to
but
that because,
yeah.
there's probably a lot we could add to it.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Just wanted to quickly put up, this is a
The
shot of
women.
some of the female cast of Mobland. You've got let's see, you've got, Mandeep, Dillon. Again, I may not be saying her she plays Serafina,
Mhm.
which is, one of Pierce Brosnan's character's daughters, and you can if you wanna you could talk about how she comes into the family, but, she's not exactly Irish, but, and then you see in the middle here, Joanne who plays Jan, I mentioned, Tom Hardy's
Yeah,
wife.
Tom Hardy's wife,
Yeah, and then you have, that is Kevin's wife, Bella, played by Lara Pulver.
which
Uh,
was
so
Conrad's
great.
mistress
That's right.
originally, but I don't wanna go any more than
And
that.
there's the great Jeff Bell, who, was
Yeah.
also in, like I said, Top Boy, which great writing on that. If you're looking for like another kind of British, uh, themed show, it's really good.
Did you say that was on Netflix?
It's on Netflix, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, called Top Boy, and what they did was they called those first 2 short seasons Top Boy Summer House, which is it's the place that they're setting it in London, but the newer series, it's Top Boy. So if you go and you look in Netflix for Top Boy, you're gonna see 2 different versions of it pop up, and that's why.
Yeah.
But I would so make your, case here for Mobland before we wrap on this one.
To me, it's the best mobs, and I haven't seen Ray Donovan, so it's not fair. I don't know how similar or different those are,
Mhm.
but this is the best show I've seen since The Sopranos, a mob show. And I was really racking my brains trying to think of there's gotta be something in between there. And again, Ray Donovan might fit the bill, but I haven't seen it. Not a single episode.
I'm with you. I haven't either. So I've assumed you had, but you sort of alluded to this earlier, but just for those that want to know this, I think it's worth repeating that there is some very adult language in the series, and it does get quite violent at times too.
Yes.
So just
This
know that
isn't
up
one for
front.
the family.
It's not a family affair,
Put the
no, for
kids to
sure.
bed.
That's right.
And I don't know, I thought you were gonna pick up on this and or mention this,
Mm,
but the episode titles, a lot of them were
mm.
song titles,
Oh
like
yeah, I wasn't paying as
"Funeral
much
for a
attention to that.
Friend,"
Yeah, yeah.
Elton John.
I didn't really pick up on that much.
Yeah,
No.
like, you usually pick up on because 'cause I'm terrible. If we did trivia with music, I would get a 0.
The Crossroads, Helter Skelter. Okay, I see what you're
Yeah,
talking about. Yeah, The Beast in Me. Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
something
that's a
like
great
7 of the 9.
the last episode, The Beast in Me, features this really haunting, definitely not
Johnny
uplifting Johnny
Cash.
Cash song. Yeah, it's great.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I hadn't heard that song before, surprisingly.
I'm not sure if I had. I mean, considering how big a fan dad was of Johnny
Right.
Cash,
I
but
thought I heard everything Johnny Cash.
well, there you go. It's a recommendation from both of us here to check out Mobland on Paramount Plus, season 1, 10 episodes. It's streaming now. Yeah, it's a good one. I do hope that it gets a nod to come back and get greenlit for a second
And if you're
season.
not a binger, it's literally worth a month. It's like
It
$12.99. You get
is. It
Showtime
is
and
worth it.
Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
It's well worth 12 considering what you pay to go to a movie. This is 9 episodes deep, and they're not like 20-minute episodes. They're 40-minute episodes,
Yeah, yeah. And
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 there's a
unlike
lot of content here.
and unlike my comments about the series Ozark, there's some dark comedy in this too. It's funny at times.
Right,
It's very dark, but it's funny. There is some humor
right. It
throughout.
doesn't
So
stay light
no.
often.
But, the entire cast is fabulous.
And I
So it's not
love Tom
it
Hardy in this.
well, he's great, but it's not like he's carrying it. Like, there is just
No.
some heavy hitters in this cast. They're really
Yeah.
fantastic actors and actresses. So, well, there you go, folks. Mobland. Again, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can follow us on Instagram at OHB as in brother podcast. It's right here, Mike, on the Oh Brother mug at
There it is.
OHB podcast. Yep. You can again listen to us on all podcast platforms. Consider dropping a review on one of the podcast platforms you listen to. Like if you write up a review and give us maybe 5 stars, it could help kind of get the show out to more and more people. So that would be greatly appreciated. And as I mentioned in the show notes of the audio episodes, there's a link to support the show. So if you're so inclined, we would appreciate it. Help us continue to do what we're doing and hopefully bring you more entertaining and informational content, hopefully. But and thanks again for everybody that's been subscribing and been engaging with us on the YouTube channel. That's been a lot of fun. So keep that up as well. It's going to do it, Mike, for another episode of the Old Brother Podcast. Been your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, I wanted to say my brother from another mother, Mike Smith, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.